When it comes to Chinese Gundam style mecha model kits, they just seem to be getting better and better. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Infinite Dimension Genesis. This right here is an absolutely stunning looking model kit. This comes in at the usual kind of master grade style. When it does come to Chinese kits, this does seem to be the zone they're trying to fill in, where Bandai just isn't really performing as much as it used to. The Infinite Dimension Genesis really is the perfect breakdown of the Gundam DNA. Like, they just broke apart so many Gundam designs and recombined them into essentially a completely original design. Looking at every aspect of this, you will see a reference to some kind of Gundam, from Excess Gundam, G-Self, Strike Freedom, Wing, Zeta Gundam. There's a bit of everything in here, but they're all amalgamated into a really nice, unique design. When it comes to the actual performance and the build of the model kit itself, this is definitely something you can build with a beginner skill set. For the vast majority of this kit, it is undergated, so snipping it out is a breeze. And there is no retooling of parts required. Everything fits where they should, as they should. However, it does have that usual thing you do see with a lot of Chinese kits, where the parts don't really hold on over time, so it is worth gluing a lot of the parts while building it. And speaking of the parts in the build, the same level of awesome detail has been given to the weapons and accessories in this too. Overall, this is an extremely premium model kit if you're looking for something for display, but not so much if you're thinking about posing and play. But I suppose that is enough glossing over the surface of it. Let's go back in time and check this entire model kit out, starting with the build. If you're like me, you love nothing better than to sit down for a nice long mecha build. Unless you're sitting in that. Ouch! I spend hours of every day sitting on this mess and I'm crippled by back and hip pain after a day building Gunpla and editing videos. If only there was something better. This right here is the C7 by FlexiSpot, and damn is it nice. I feel my back rearranging already. But what makes this any different to any old office chair? Office mode. With a backrest locked at 93 degrees for a stable upright position and amazing lumbar support, this is perfect for hours-long build marathons. Customized adjustable headrest. Tilt forward for work, tilt back to relax, you'll always find the perfect angle. Choice of foam or mesh seat cushion. Made of DuPont elastomer and velvet yarn, it's highly elastic, has strong support, and it's eco-friendly. Do you find yourself trying to jam random cushions and stuff behind your back to get comfortable and relieve the pain? No need for that rubbish with the C7, as it has an adaptive lumbar support that conforms to the spine when seated with a locking handle to keep it in place. Larger and wider seat for unparalleled comfort, for more legroom and locking forward tilt function. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. 4-level recline to a max of 128 degrees and a full pull-out footrest. Pull it out halfway for some extra legroom to chill, or as a perfect pet seat for some relax time cuddling. Big enough to fit the whole pack. Pull it out even further to kick back in full relax mode. 3D armrest with swivel and height adjustment. 3 positions of rotation and a locking height adjust is something I never knew I needed. On top of that, you've got a 30-day return policy for a risk-free trial, 10-year warranty with direct replacement for damaged parts, and use my code C730 to enjoy a $30 discount. Now is the best time to get a FlexiSpot C7. Your back will thank you. When it comes to the build of the Infinite Dimension Genesis, inside of this box you are greeted to a ridiculous amount of parts. Now this might be pretty much a 1/100-ish scale or master grade sized kit, but the amount of parts you have in here is nothing like what you would see with a master grade by Bandai. This is a long haul build. This took me about 2 days of building solidly to get it straight built. It is a project without a doubt. Besides the plastic in here, we do get a little bag of screws, a mystery box, the manual, which is very nice. We've got some colored pictures of the finished kit and it is quite easy to follow. Another little bit of a packet in here which has some foil stickers, water slide decals, and a little insert for the stand. Finally, then we do have this little bit of a piece of paper in here too. There's 2 in here, there's no reason for 2, there's only meant to be 1 I assume, and this is for that mystery box. And speaking of that mystery box, this is for the, I think, deluxe version of this particular kit, which does come with some die-cast metal parts for multiple joints in the upper body, the arms, and the legs. So yeah, inside this box you do get a whole ton of parts. When it comes to the manual in here, this is full color, it's very nice. A kind of technical drawing style image of the actual finished mecha, and when it comes to these kind of aspects telling you about how to build a kit, it's very similar to Bandai's offerings. The pages do tell you what runners to use for each part of the kit, which is very, very important because I will mention there's a lot of runners on this kit, so there is a lot of back and forth. Space management is going to be a little bit of an issue, so have some kind of rack or setup available to put your runners in. And when it actually got towards the end of this build, I kind of gave up on that and runners were everywhere, but I guess it didn't really matter. But it is worth knowing there is a lot of running around runners on this kit. Like I mentioned with this particular deluxe version of this kit, there is die-cast metal parts in here. I do have one minor little gripe with this kit, maybe two, but they're kind of the same gripe, and that is when it comes to the die-cast metal parts, it doesn't tell you in the manual when you use these. The plastic parts are included on the runners, so the option is there, but you just kind of have to be always super aware and vigilant to check that you're using the parts when you need them. So that does mean if you kind of space out during your builds when you're getting into them, you could miss something. So I did miss putting in 2 metal parts into the torso of this kit. Just because it's not in the manual, you just have to keep referencing the sheet to see when and if you need them. The other gripe is kind of the same, but it's not really that big of a deal. It's when it comes to the foil stickers for on this kit, it doesn't tell you when to use them during the build. So that does mean if you wanted to put some on while building, which is a little bit easier than putting them onto the complete model, that option really isn't there. You'd have to keep going to the reference at the back of the manual. So it means like these parts on the knees here, which I could have put in while building it, they're an option, by the way, you don't have to put them in. It would have been nice to do that. It is easy to pop off the parts, stick in the stickers, but it would have been nice to do it as you went along. Minor gripe, not a big deal. So when it does come to the build on this kit, it is an extremely complex build. Not complex difficult level-wise, just there is a ton of parts to every aspect on this. I would say it is definitely beginner friendly. You don't have to drill any holes, you don't have to widen any parts, you don't have to make anything fit where it doesn't fit. The only fitting issue I had in this kit is in the foot, where the top part would not really slot onto the metal optional part in here, but that never happened again. Every other metal piece and plastic bit, they married together perfectly. It was just here that it was a little bit awkward, but fitting wise, everything fits on. Actually, scratch that. There was a bit on the sides of the legs too. They tend to fall off a little bit. But overall, everything, at least plastic on plastic, fits extremely well. Like I mentioned, the metal parts there in the deluxe version are an option. You don't have to use them if you prefer plastic on plastic, which may be a little bit better, honestly. You can use those. They're just additional parts to be used instead of the plastic ones, like this knee joint right here. I will also mention during this build there are a few screws. Now these are not screws like in the old Bandai kind of way where they were the only thing holding the fucking kit together. These are actually not that bad. They're for some areas, especially areas with metal parts, that just make sure everything holds together. I don't mind a good screw where and if it's needed. Otherwise, like the old Bandai kits, it just felt like a bit of a crutch. Here, not so much. The design of the actual Genesis Mecha is absolutely stunningly beautiful. It's a jaw-dropping design and they've pulled it off so well. All of the various different color aspects are represented in the actual build and everything builds up nicely. I will mention, however, there is no multicolored runners here. Everything is molded in a single color on multiple runners. So again, it can get a little bit jumbly while building, but the payoff is so worth it. This kit does feature that thing that I love on modern Bandai kits, and they've done it perfectly here, and that is parts layering. So you have a lot of parts, especially in the armor, where the grey sections and other colored sections from below come out through from underneath, giving it a lot more detail all over the surface. This is incredibly detailed on every facet everywhere, and it just looks stupendous. This also goes for any kind of die-cast metal parts too, so they do shine out from underneath, which is an incredibly cool effect. Now, I will mention at this point, this kit is made out of a kind of rubbery plastic. That's the kind of plastic that a lot of these Chinese kits are made out of. When you move them around a lot, they end up kind of starting to separate. So anything that does not move in this kit, I highly recommend gluing or cementing. You'll be a lot more happy with the finished build if you do that while building along. Otherwise, later on, some parts will start going AWOL. Only once while actually building this did I get quite confused. That was in the shoulders. I thought for a second that a part was missing from the instructions, because one minute you've got a whole array of various little bits, and in the next kind of panel here, it's all kind of connected together. But what I didn't realize is the little image off to the right literally shows you what to do, but it did mildly confuse me. This is a nice little apparatus of moving segments, and it is a very cool shoulder design. Great color separation all throughout this build. Again, even those parts layering in from underneath, so nice up in the shoulders. Bandai's master grade kits are definitely the kind of template this kit right here is following. Even when it does come to the hands, what we've got is the swappable style fingers for fists and widespread open hands with a semi-articulated thumb. The use of the orange clear parts on this kit are absolutely beautiful. Underneath we've got some nice detail, begging to be somewhat painted to kind of bring out some of the detail so it will shine on through those nice clear parts, but the shade of orange in here is incredible. When it comes to the head on this is made of a ton of parts, a ton of tiny little parts at that. Some aspects about this that you'd recognize again from Bandai style kits is the eyes here are not fully color separated, but they are in a kind of clear green color, and the option of throwing a sticker on top of that for your instant eyes. And although this kit does not have a V-fin up on its head, it's got a very G-self-inspired pair of horns. Now, I will mention this is very delicate, and a lot of these parts feel like they're a little bit prone to falling off. So if you're going to cement or glue anything on this kit, I recommend doing it around the head completely. Once you finally do have the whole body of the Gundam, I actually caught myself there saying Gundam, it's pretty much a Gundam. But yeah, of this mecha finished, there's still so much more to do, and I'd say you're only about halfway through it. There's a lot of backpack parts and a lot of weapons, all of which with the same level of care and attention in their design. When it comes to the weapons and equipment, just like the mecha itself, these have the same level of ridiculous detail and color separation. And on top of that, they take a big old leaf from different Gundam's books. First off, we've got the shield that has tons and tons of nice detail, and as you can see as it builds up, this right here is 100% this shield from Wing Gundam, a little bit rejiggered around. You even have an option of using a green clear part in it or the orange one. It shows orange in the manual. It does show the green one as well, but that green has serious Wing Gundam energy. The big ol' rifle on this kit has the same level of detail yet again. Incredible, just layered parts after layered parts after layered parts, so much color separation, tiny little details and some clear parts too. As this builds up, well, I'll give you 2 seconds to take a guess of what this is heavily inspired by, especially with that little bit of a targeting radome apparatus. This right here is a very stylized and over-the-top variant of the XS Gundam's Beam Smart Gun, and a really cool looking variant. Around in the back of this particular mecha, we do have a set of thrusters as well as a set of wings. Now, I did not actually film the building of the thrusters, but it's the same level of detail as everything else on here. And I did film the wing sections just to kind of show how much clutter you may end up with if you're not that organized from the amount of parts in this kit. And to mention one aspect, I'm not the hugest fan of undergated kits, because a lot of times, especially with Bandai's offerings, the undergates sometimes can come on seams from the kit, which make them kind of funky to put together, and if you cut too deep, you're going to gouge a little piece out, and it's easier to clean up surfaces, usually, than in between seams. However, this kit has done it very well. I only double nipped everything on this kit, did no sanding on really anything, and anywhere the kind of undergated parts would end up sandwiching together, there's always a part that goes on over them to make sure they're held together properly and somewhat disguised. So it's an extremely nicely designed kit. And just if this kit didn't seem awesome enough already, and well, fairly fantastic value, this kit also includes a stand, and not just any old kind of crappy stand. This is something akin to what you would see with high quality Japanese action figures like you'd see with Metal Build. This is some heavy duty plastic, builds up perfectly, has functioning little button sections on it to change the angle on it, and in the end we also have a little bit of an insert too. You have 2 sides to choose from, the side that says Genesis or one that shows a little bit of a bust zone of the mecha itself. This slots in, you get a little plastic piece for over it, and that is a very nice touch. That's a high quality stand. On the final assembly, I did find that some parts were falling off here and there, especially exterior armor parts, some parts up on the clavicle cannons, some parts down on the ankles. So yeah, I didn't glue anything on this kit because it is for a review, but if I was to build this kit again, or one of these kits again, I'd be cementing every stage of the build that wasn't meant to move. But anyway, moment of truth time. Let's check out the aesthetics. So jumping on into the aesthetics, and when it comes to the overview of the Infinite Dimension Genesis, this thing is an absolute feast for the eyes. There is so much going on. Multiple shades of color, predominantly in a white, blue, yellow, translucent orange, translucent green, and multiple shades of grey. The diecast comes through too, and overall it is incredible looking. Got some red details splashed here and there, and those transparent parts have just been masterfully placed on it, and the overall color distribution is extremely nice. This kit just looks premium right out of box. Nothing has been added, nothing has been taken away, it hasn't been panel lined, there are included water slide decals I just did not get the time to get around to. This is quite literally what you get when you snip and snap only, and it is astounding. But of course, all of that is visually, of course. I will mention this isn't the most handleable kit around out of box, so I'm just going to be very careful with this. Now, I did read some kind of impressions of this before I actually did build it, and a lot said that the kind of new metal joints on it are somewhat tight. I'm finding them a little bit on the loose side. I'm just going to take off the accessories for now, and that is really all there is accessories wise. Everything else on here, oh, that is a little bit tight right there. Some aspects tight, some aspects loose, and all I can say is I'm glad it came with a stand. It's going to get onto that very soon. Also, this little aspect right here is something that I've always found a little bit on the problematic side with some Chinese manufactured kits. Again, you should probably cement things in here, but otherwise you're going to get these little pieces lying around the place, and any of them I've built, like the Judge, or actually don't really remember the rest of the names of the rest of them, but parts do like to shoot off when they fall off, or when they fall over, or just kind of over time, and finding out where they go sometimes can be a little bit difficult. But yeah, right now we're talking about the aesthetics, not about how this kit holds up. And aesthetically, this kit is a work of art. It is absolutely gorgeous. It amalgamates in a whole lot of Gundam style design. For example, we do have a very Gundam-y face, Gundam-shaped head. It kind of looks like a little bit of a cross between Gundam Estrella with a little bit of G-Self in there. We've got a tiny little bit of a blue stylized headpiece that's kind of like a V-fin, and overall there's some parts you will recognize from some other Gundams. The shoulders have a high new Gundam kind of flair. These side skirts, very Gundam Zeta, like that little section up on the back of its head. A lot of Zeta style Gundams, Double Zeta, S Gundam, XS Gundam, all have that little piece, and it's nice to see. The feet have that kind of asymmetrical, what the older master grade seed kits had, like Strike Freedom, and everywhere you look, there's something that just has that little bit of a Gundam-y feel, but at the same time, it's a little bit hard to identify, and they've been all amalgamated into this new design perfectly, so that it is, in and of itself, a completely brand new, gorgeous design. Also, those bits up in the clavicles right there, a little bit Gundam wingy looking. Overall, though, absolute feast for the eyes. It's almost the mecha equivalent of an episode of Gundam Build Fighters. I remember back watching Gundam Build Fighters, and the best kind of aspect about it was in every episode, just kind of pointing at Gundams going, oh, that Gundam, that Gundam, that Gundam, that Gundam, that Gundam. That's what taking a look at this design is like. However, it does have a lot of its own elements that are, well, feel, at least to me, completely unique. The clear part usage on this, on the knees, the crotch, the shoulders and everything, is very beautiful. The inverted wings around back look incredible, the thrusters up on the shoulders look so good, and the little, almost cockpity looking aspects up on the shoulders look cool too. Overall, even though some aspects of this may feel like they've been seen somewhat sometime in the past, this thing makes everything feel so new, and in the end, it's a mecha masterpiece in its own right, design-wise. So jumping on into a little bit of a size comparison, and there it is beside two of Bandai's master grades, and as you can see, this is a sizable kit, but it definitely falls into the 1/100 scale region, assuming that this would be in and around the size of a Gundam in its own universe. Side by side with something like the Oryx 78 you can see it has a much higher head height, much higher shoulder height, and a lot of bulk around back compared to a standard Gundam. But if you do put it side by side with a larger Gundam, like the new Gundam there on the right, even though it is missing its wing as well, it still is taller than this particular machine. So that does mean, like I said, it is in the 1/100 scale area, and it is highly detailed. And speaking of highly detailed, there it is side by side with two of Bandai's fancier offerings, the Master Grade Zeta Verka on the left and the Master Grade Nard of Gundam Verka on the right. So as you can see, detail per detail, this is more narrative level, if not a little higher, than something like the Zeta, and that is impressive. So jumping on into the accessories, and here's everything that comes with the Infinite Dimension Genesis. So we do get that giant, I guess, beam smart gun, that shield, we have 2 pistols, a whole bunch of adapters for using with the fully included, very premium action-based stand. Now we'll also mention over here we do have a couple of other things as well. You've got some alternate color aspects for all of the red sections that were, or should I say, clear orange sections which were on this kit. This little orange part right here, that is an option for using in this shield, so if you want to keep all the clear parts in orange. We also do have a full sheet of water slide decals. I did not get to try these out, but they do look very, very nicely designed. And there is a sheet of these little kind of foil stickers too. I only used a couple of them just for the sake of example, but there's a whole ton for using if you want to. So first off, I'm going to start off by taking a look at the stand just so I can get this thing loaded up onto it. This is incredibly nicely designed. We do have 2 points of moving this. We've got this little locking segment right here, which is the extension of the length on this, and this really does extend up pretty high. That is nice. The other point of movement here is this little locking mechanism. So you just push this in, it's from the other side, and that allows this to move. And then when you have it at the angle that you do want, you just lock it back in. Very, very nice. You do have removable and changeable these things up here. It is a little bit difficult to get out. You should use pliers. We have a gray one. We have a different angled white one, and another bit of an adapter thingamajig for when it is transformed. Getting the Genesis attached on is super simple. You just lift up the rear skirting armor like so. You'll see there is a little bit of a slot in here. This is good because it means it won't rotate like a kind of peg hole. This just attaches onto the action base or stand just like this. It holds on perfectly, and then you use the little button right here to adjust it. And the one good thing about this is it seems to automatically fall in line to be perpendicular to the ground. Sometimes with Bandai's stands, I'm always just trying to get it just right, but it never wants to sit right for me. This, instantly perfect. So when it comes to the hands in here, these are very similar to what you'd see with a lot of Bandai's modern master grades. That is, we do have a semi-articulated thumb, so it does have a ball joint at the bottom, a hinge at the bendy part, so I guess it's fully articulated. And then when it comes to the fingers, these are swappable style. What I've had on the whole time are these dynamic widespreads, but we also do have fists as well. They swap out just like so, easy to attach, hold on well. We have weapon holding hands in here as well, but I'll take a look at those when I'm looking at the weapons. And that right there is what the fists look like. The design of these, especially around the joints, is very, very nice looking. So finally moving into the weapons, and the first of the weapons and equipment that we have in here is its variant of the Beam Smart Gun. Just look at this. This is absolutely incredible. I did notice there is a little bit of, I guess, color separation issues. I think this little section right here is meant to be in yellow, if I'm not mistaken, as that is what we're seeing in the little manual right here. You'd think they'd just kind of leave it gray in the manual, because honestly, that doesn't really detract from it much at all. Overall, this looks incredible. All those different, like, slight variations in color, the kind of brownish gray, the true gray, that kind of almost purplish gray as well. We do have a nice little clear orange section on this part for part of its sensor array, and the same around here as well in this little radomy part. Look how premium that looks. I've built a whole ton of Bandai kits that have these little guys in them. They always use stickers, not these nice clear segments. Those look incredible. It does have a couple of moving parts. This has a little bit of a sliding extension gimmick. The handle can move. Never mind, but maybe it's not supposed to. It is on a little bit of a hingy bit inside of it, but I think it's meant to be attached in like so. We've got this little part round back. It does have this here, which I assume attaches into the arm. I think this weapon actually holds underslung like this, but I guess we're about to find out. And this is pretty cool. We've got this lifting mechanism here for tucking this away when it is not in use. Probably remove that little bit of an attachment point there, and then pop out the one that we have in here. This doesn't have anything to really grab onto, so you'd need yourself a fairly hefty tweezers to pull that out. So when it comes to attaching on the rifle, this is like we've seen multiple times before with multiple Mecha model kits. We've got these swappable style fingers. They slot onto the handle like so. There's a little bit of a peg section in the back of them to hold them on. Holds on nicely. This then pops into the hand and the rear of the arm. The rear of the arm has a little bit of a long slot you can pop this little section into, then it pops into the hand via the fingers for a 2-point hold, which is quite strong. Now the wrists on this are a little bit on the feeble side, but it doesn't really matter so much due to this double locking mechanism. So overall it's holding up very nicely so far, and this is one incredibly nice looking weapon. This holds onto it well, it looks great, what more is there to say? So next up in here we've got the shield, again extremely nicely detailed. You do have a choice of green or orange effect part for in the shield front section. Attaching this on, we've got a little bit of an arm round back with a whole lot of movement to it. Also on the underside we do have some nice detailing as well. Attaching it onto the arm, it's just one of those slots round back and it holds on and attaches on perfectly. Now the big question here is, when you do have some weapons loaded onto this, how does it pose? I haven't tried yet at all posing this beast because I'm afraid of parts falling off everywhere. Anyway, overall it worked out quite well. The shoulders are ridiculously weak, but then again, I did not put the metal parts in the shoulders. That's the one metal joint I did forget. So I'm not sure if the metal joints actually do make it stronger or not. Anyway, the overall posing experience was okay. A couple of parts fell off on me, and what I got in the end was this very nice pose based on the Ale Strike pose. This is what we get. It is very dynamic, and as if you were to set it up like this and pop it up on your shelf, you would have a very good time. I'm not sure how it's gonna put up with posing over time, but we will see, I guess. Anyway, the two parts I did lose was the radome section and one of those Gundam style wing ears. But overall, what I got in the end is very impressive. The articulation in there, not necessarily the build strength, but the articulation is impressive. So next up in here we do have a pair of pistols as well, which is always a really fun mecha weapon. Anyway, this is nicely layered. We've got a darker grey plastic on the inside, that little section underneath, I'm guessing it's the sight in yellow. The handles can tuck away for storage, and we do have this push through little bit of a tab section here as well, which I assume also is part of the storage option. Getting these attached on is exactly the same as that big old rifle, and that is you pop them into the hand fingers like so, and then the fingers attach into the hands. It's the same on both sides, just the reverse way around, and this is what they look like attached. So extremely, extremely nice, and let's chance getting it in another pose. So when it comes to actually getting this into a pose with these pistols, it all works out perfectly. This is solid in its frame mostly, definitely mostly, besides a couple of minor aspects, but with the pistols attached it's no issue. The armor might come loose every now and then, so just be careful with what you're actually moving, but the articulation is fantastic. The only actual issue I ran into on this is, while I was actually getting into a sideways jumping or flying pose, I wanted to get the hips moved over to get that momentum into the pose, which I was getting very nicely, but the stand itself is what limits it. It has no kind of pivot or tilt up top, so it's always at the same angle, which means you can't get this leaning off to the side while doing a jumping pose, so you are limited there to some degree. So I went for more of this widespread kind of blasting backwards kind of pose instead, and it worked out nicely. Nice weapons, and it posed very well. Finally then, when these are not in use, you just fold up the handle, pop out this little peg section, and they attach up onto the thrusters, up, round, back, just like so, tight, and will hold on, no bother. And while talking about those thrusters up here as well, there is an opening little hatch up top with some nice color separated missiles inside. Again, mostly everything on this is nicely color separated and looks so impressive. So finally now, moving on to the articulation. Now I will mention, sadly enough, this is starting to loosen up quite a bit. This knee was never the strongest out of box. The shoulders are a little bit on the floppy side. It has some issues here at the waist, and overall it's already starting to act up a little bit on me. It's not crazy, but it has a lot of weight to bear, and over time, the various joints that I have moved, and I've barely moved them just for the couple of poses that we saw, are kind of giving up a little bit. Now, I'm going to get into the usual pose, and if anything does fall off, I'm going to leave it off. So on the whole, and all things considered, I am extremely impressed by this. All the range of motion and all of the joints is, it's absolutely incredible. I only lost one little piece while actually posing it up. Again, things are loosening a little bit while posing this around, but not that bad. Everything does feel decent enough. Some joints are a little tighter than others, some are a little looser than others, so it does mean there's that kind of little dance back and forth with the loose ones moving too much, the tight ones not moving enough, but overall it did work out incredibly well, and this looks so good in a pose. Like I mentioned, I did lose one piece, which is this piece right here. It's just off the ankle armor. Now, I will mention a little bit of a throwback to the actual build. At 2 points, it said how to build the ankle armors, and it said them differently. One was you put the ball joint into the metal part of the leg, then attach these on. The other says you attach the ball joint into the ankle armors and then put that into the metal part of the leg. That does not work. That actually doesn't work. So this could be one of the ones that actually got fucked around when I was following those instructions. So that could be that. But overall, like I said, this is extremely nice. Look at that pose. Everything is so nice. The angles fall where they need to. This has been expertly designed. The design of this is incredible and it looks beautiful. If only the kind of execution of the actual articulated parts was that little bit better. But again, for a company that, as far as I know, only has 3 kits under their belt, I'm not even sure if this is 1, 2, or 3, this is masterwork right here. If you're quite patient and you don't mind things being a little bit on the delicate side, this is very nice. And if you just want to get one single kick arse pose and then put it up on your shelf, you will get a kick arse pose. So that right there is it for the review. I'm not sure if I actually do rank Chinese kits or not, if I have in the past, but I'm going to rank this one anyway. This one right here is Platinum tier, just shy of being Gundam tier. If the actual engineering to the articulation and the constant movement to this was that little bit better, it would be Gundam tier through and through. However, it's still an absolutely mesmerizing, fantastically designed, and gorgeous kit. Now, we'll mention you might be wondering, what about that transformation to its flight form? Not a chance. I've heard nightmare stories about how it doesn't really work out, it doesn't hold together, the balance doesn't work on the stands, and just, it's a bit of a mess. And I don't want this to loosen up any more than it is already, which it may. So yeah, overall, going through the list, aesthetically, this is its strongest point. This is gorgeous. What a fantastic design. The people over at Infinite Dimension have killed it. I haven't seen a Mecha or Gundam model kit look this good probably in a long time. This is a better design than Sunrise has pumped out in years. When it comes to the accessories in here, they're all very nice. They're just as detailed as the kit itself, and they all are insane. Very nicely color separated, and they look beautiful. Lastly, then, when it does come to the articulation and the build quality, that is where it does drop the ball a little bit. The armor bits in kind of Chinese kit style do kind of work their way off over time. The rubberyish plastic, when you are moving it around, does work joints open, so it's not really one for playing around with too much. Get it into the pose that you do want and kind of leave it there is probably the best way to put it. This comes with a full stand, so getting into a big kick-ass action pose for up on your shelf is the way to go. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. The link is down there in the description, and I will mention that I am doing a little bit of an update to the Patreon very soon. The tiers on the channel itself, the ranking tiers, are going to change soon, so there is going to be a little bit of a soft reset there, and that will be going hand in hand with what is going on in the Patreon. So we'll be changing some aspects and the perks that are on there, so keep an eye out for that. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more Mecha Model Kit reviews, and I'll see you next time. As always, I can't finish this video without special thanks to those who support the channel on the memberships as well as over on Patreon, including Abraxas, Caleb Engelhardt, Joe, Orgy59061, Shadowwolf179, 10 Soldier YT, and Van Fawn.